Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and today we're going to be checking out the Masterverse new Eternia Zodac. Yeah, it's the latest figure in the new Eternia segment of the Masterverse line, which if you are not yet familiar with the new Eternia segment within the Masterverse line, these are essentially like classic characters but with an updated style that pays homage usually to some of the vintage artwork or the vintage toys that came before it, but it's like a new version of the character. So this still looks very much like Zodac, just looking at him in the packaging here, but you can see some little additions to the outfit there that makes him stand out a bit. So really excited to get this guy out of the box and get a closer look at him. I will say that the artwork is gorgeous on this, and I'll be perfectly honest, I've never been a huge Zodac fan. I've always found him to be one of the more boring looking characters in the line. I'm sorry to the Zodac fans out there, but I gotta say, this artwork, I love this. I just love how futuristic and like sci-fi, like the vibes that I get from this artwork is amazing. And then on the back here, I love this because look, you got like that new Eternia, like very Viking style He-Man back here doing battle with the Skeletor. You can see this Castle Grayskull looking very ominous in the background here. Gorgeous artwork on this packaging. Like seriously, this stuff is amazing, and this is just really incredible stuff. It really does bring these characters to life. So now that the artwork is awesome, let's get the figure out of the packaging and see how it holds up. Alright, we got new Eternia Zodac outside of the packaging. Bringing in the tape measure, you can see he's right there at the 7-inch mark, like the other figures in the Masterverse line. So here he is, the reimagined version of one of the original 8 Masters of the Universe characters. Though as you can see, he still very much looks like Zodac. There's not a lot different going on here. There are a few additional touches here. Just some minor new additions. I think first of all, of course, it's those shoulder pads. And when this was first revealed, I remember the shoulder pads really standing out to me a lot and feeling like they were a little too much, like I didn't need them. But now that I've got it in hand, I actually do think the shoulder pads are pretty cool looking. But if you decide that you don't want your Zodac with shoulder pads, it is worth noting that these are removable. And the design is really interesting because they're on these little pegs on the back. Like, look at this. You can actually swivel them around backwards if you want. Like, that's kind of hilarious, but it also just pops right off. Look at that. You can just pull them right out of those little C-clamps right there. So then he's got those C-clamps on his back, and we can have him without the shoulder pads there. Now, there's going to be another reason that these C-clamps are cool that we're going to come back to in just a bit. The other little extra bits here is he does also have a holster at the side now, which I do like quite a bit. You can see his standard classic space blaster plugs right into it, and it actually fits really well. I like that quite a bit. This is also removable if you want to take it off. It just has the typical straps, and then it's got another strap that's just attached to his armor there, so you can pull the armor off, you could slide that off, you can remove the leg strap if you want to. So pretty cool stuff. Otherwise, he does have this additional little loincloth piece. This is part of the sculpt, though. This right here is not removable. But otherwise, he is almost a basic Zodac aside from these new extra pieces that they put on here. And everything about this guy looks great. I mean, he looks like Zodac. Personally, I always felt like Zodac was one of the more boring figures. That was my own personal opinion. I know there's plenty of fans out there of Zodac. But, you know, there just didn't always feel like a lot to him to me. And this really does kind of continue that. And in fact, it does continue upon some of the things about the vintage figure that made him unique, like the fact that he has these Skeletor style finned arms, he's got clawed hands, so he's got the pointy fingers, and he's got the monster feet, the gray boots with the pointy monster feet there. And yes, my friends, he does have the molded hairy chest. Just like your vintage action figure. So don't worry, Zodac still has his hairy chest. It's a signature piece for this particular character. Articulation wise, I think you guys know what's going on here. It is worth noting that head is on a ball joint, just like the other figures in this line. So that allows the head to roll around, look left and right. Shoulders are jointed. You can see the shoulder pads will kind of raise up a little bit if they need to. So it doesn't really hinder the movement whatsoever. Swivels at the bicep, double joints at the elbows there. Swivel at the wrist, hinge at the wrist. You got that joint in the torso there. Still moves fine, even though we've got this extra connection with like this leg holster there. there. It's not really getting in the way too much. You will kind of run into it when trying to turn his waist though, but you can see that's designed so that this slides across the armor strap on the bottom. So that's actually pretty nice. Ball joints at the thighs. The legs can go outwards, forwards, backwards. Swivel at the thigh cut. Really, really tight double jointed knees. So no problem standing, that's for sure. Swivel at the boot cut, and then the ankles can move forwards and backwards. They got that ratchet joint there, as well as rock side to side. So pretty much exactly what we've come to expect for these particular figures. And it is really interesting because, we saw these boots on like the 40th anniversary, these boots and these feet, 40th anniversary Skeletor that was in that San Diego set. So I do really hope they find a way to use those again for a retail Skeletor, since it's being used here for this particular Zodac figure. All right, so I already mentioned that he comes with that blaster, and for that, you can see we do have two gripping hands on the figure. The right one is interesting because he's got like the more open hand, and again, I think these are just reused Skeletor hands, but it's funny because it looks like he's gripping like a trigger on his pistol, but there is no trigger on the pistol, but he still holds it just fine. It looks pretty good in his hand, and he can hold that in either hand there. You do also have a pair of interchangeable closed fists, so if you want to do that, you can easily just pop the fist out of socket, put the new one in its place, and you are good to go. Now, in addition to his signature blaster, this version of Zodac also comes with this really cool staff. This is cool because it's giving me the 2002 Zodac vibes. It was a different version of the character, but this is what he used, was a staff weapon, and the staff also breaks apart into two smaller clubs. Now, I mentioned on the back here that there was another use for these C-clamps. If you want to remove the shoulder pads, you actually can clip these into the back. They feel a little bit loose. Probably holds better. Yeah, it holds much tighter on that thicker part. So that's pretty cool. It's a place to store those if you want to on his back. It just means that you can't also have the shoulder pads on there. But at least there's a use for them if you were planning to display this guy without the shoulder pads on. That way you don't have those C-clamps there just for no reason. So I thought it was a little weird that this is the way the shoulder pads were designed, but I think that's exactly why they designed them that way. I think they had the multi-use in mind there. Yeah, so you can use the two gripping hands, and you can have them holding the two separate clubs if you want to, or you can put those together as the longer staff, and you can have them wielding the staff weapon two-handed, which is also very cool. And again, really giving me those 2000X vibes, which is pretty awesome. So with that being said, my friends, it's comparison time. I want to go ahead and stand this guy just alongside the two Masters of the Universe Classic Zodacs that we got, because I just feel like that's the best thing to compare him to. And those were both inspired by the original vintage figure and the 2002 iteration of Zodac, the 2000X version. So there you go. We've got all three of our 7-inch scale Zodac standing side by side. So there you go, my friends. That is a look at the new Eternia Zodac action figure. So far, I really like all of the new Eternia renditions of these characters. Now, this one doesn't seem to have quite the concept art stuff going on with him, or at least not as many embellishments as some of those others, but he's still a really solid Zodac figure, and he does have some extra parts that, just like those other ones, you can remove them if you want to, have a more vintage-looking Zodac, or you can add all those extra bits for a new version of the classic character. Pretty fun stuff. So this guy is part of one of the more recent waves, though there's been so many waves of these hitting all at the same time. I've been sitting on this one for a little while, so he's probably out there floating around, or you can pick him up at online stores like BigBadToyStore.com. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time.